and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program host and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by TCN TV Network Incorporated. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain content copyrighted by another entity or person. The TCN TV Network claims no rights to the said content. TCN TV Network cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. TCN TV Network is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this program.
Welcome to this edition of What Matters, and I'm here today with my co-host, Coach Drew.
Yeah, and I'm here, as you know, with the lovely Erica Elita.
Welcome, Andrew. And so today we are here for our monthly talk, and our topic of discussion today is?
Expectations which lead to boundaries.
Oh, expectations should lead to boundaries.
They do. They automatically do.
Okay. All right. So expectations leading to boundaries. This is kind of like when you taught me that how did it go? I thought that you you forgave and then you reconciled, and then you taught me, no, that's not the answer. So apparently I'm going to learn today, along with you, that expectations lead to boundaries.
Yes.
So we're going to start it. Actually, let's start even more at the beginning. If this is the first time that you're watching, Andrew, tell us who you are. Who are you? What do you do?
Andrew Blackwood. I'm a registered psychotherapist, but also known as Coach Drew. I work with individuals, couples, families, and lately I've been doing more speaking, started a YouTube channel, Coach Drew Can. So I'm trying to get there. As you know, I'm so used to dealing with people, right? So now I'm starting to venture out there and deal with tech and all that stuff.
The digital world, yes.
And people get confused because they're like, how do you do virtual sessions and then you don't, do a whole lot of, other kind of social media stuff. But I've been doing it virtual sessions have been around for years.
Yes, they have.
I've been doing it for at least 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this was like by Skype or?
Yeah. Initially it was by Skype, but then the regulations around it became a little bit more firm. So now I use a secure platform to do it.
Okay, that's wonderful. So Coach Drew Can is a platform. Catch him on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And he will be even more present on social media, as we've spoken about before. So, yes, Coach Drew. So, today, as Andrew said, we're going to be talking about expectations, and they lead to boundaries. Now, I know that they're connected, but I didn't look at it as one leading to the other. So, let's start at the beginning. What are expectations?
So, expectations are basically things that we believe should happen, will happen, things that we anticipate based on our life experience, our worldview, our thoughts about the world. And those lead to beliefs, which are expectations.
Okay, so an expectation is more of a belief. It's an idea. Is it almost kind of like an opinion of what something should be?
Yeah. Because our beliefs are not facts. We have opinions and beliefs about facts.
Let's repeat that. Our beliefs are not facts.
Yeah, no, our beliefs are they're not necessarily facts.
There are a lot of people that don't know that their beliefs are not facts.
Right? And I use the example all the time. Like, when we're talking about, when people use the phrase that I really don't like, that I feel like phrase. Like, I feel like you're not listening to me.
I feel like you're not listening.
For starters, it's not a feeling. It's a belief.
Right.
I don't think. I don't believe you're listening to me, but I could be wrong. You could have heard every word I said.
Right.
So our beliefs are not necessarily facts. We have beliefs about facts. Like you and I are in this room. You and I are having conversation. That's a fact.
Right. I believe it's a good conversation.
Right? And I might not have the same belief. I do in this situation, but I might not have the same belief. So just because you believe something doesn't mean that somebody else believes something. And that's where our expectations often go awry, because one of the things that we tend to believe is that if we're in a relationship, we're going to have the same beliefs.
Yes, and people, and even on social media, something I'm seeing a lot is people having to remind people that just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I don't like you.
Right.
We can disagree, and I still think you're great, and I think you're wonderful, and you're just as amazing as we were when we started the conversation. I just don't agree with you on this particular thing. So yes, in relationships of any kind, and I know when people use the term relationships, oftentimes people are always thinking romantic,
Right.
Marriage or boyfriend, girlfriend, but everyone you interact with, you have a relationship with of some kind,
That's right.
of
That's
some
right.
depth. It may be very surface, it may be deep, but all your interactions with other humans are relationships.
Right.
So in our relationships, we have expectations. Now, I'm sure, and I'm sure that Selena, because she's really good at this, could probably pull up one of these cliche sayings. But they say that Shakespeare is misquoted because he didn't say it, but expectations are the root of all disappointment. And if you expect nothing, you will never be disappointed. It's kind of the same phrase, but. So the first time I heard this, I was very young, early teens, and this older gentleman said this to me, and I thought it was profound, but it went over my head because I didn't get it.
Right.
And I was like, well, how could I not expect anything of anyone ever? That would be a weird way to walk through the world. And as I got older, I started to understand what he means, but I still don't agree with the saying.
Ooh.
Saying that even lowering your expectations. Now, there's a difference, and we could go into this too, between lowering your standards and lowering your expectations.
Right.
And then that could all tie into dating.
Yeah,
See, I'm going off on.
But it ties into everything. That's why it's difficult to tease them apart. Now, we use those words interchangeably sometimes, expectations, standards, and one of the phrases, because I agree with that statement, if you expect nothing from people, then you're not going to be disappointed.
Yes,
Now-
expectation over. Yes, I like that one. Yes.
We have
good.
to come back to that and
Yes,
unpack it.
yes,
but
I like that one. I
the
like that
reason
one.
why I agree with it is because I believe there's a difference between having desires
Mm-hmm.
and expectations.
Okay, hold on. Wait now. I'm going to go into my Webster Merriam Dictionary brain of mine. My desires are the things that I want.
Yes.
Okay. My expectations are the things I would like to happen.
Still very similar.
But they're not the
it's hard
same.
to Right. It's hard to not define expectations without using the word expectations or expect. But as opposed to just wanting something, you believe something's going to happen. You anticipate that it should happen. A desire is something that you want.
Right.
You can want whatever you want, but you can know within and of yourself that one, it might not happen, it might be unrealistic, and the other person might not want it. An expectation, it really doesn't matter what the other person wants. That's what you expect.
expect to
Okay?
happen.
Right? And that's what you base your standards on. And that's important, especially as we are talking about engaging with other people. For example, let's talk about sex. Let's dive in and talk about sex. I could have a desire to have sex maybe 3 times a day.
Right.
Is there anything wrong with that desire?
No.
Because it's a desire.
It's a desire. Right.
But if I expect that of my wife, or if she expects that of me, that might be unrealistic if she doesn't want that.
You're going to be homeless 'cause you're not gonna, nobody's going to be working. Like, I guess this is happening in the park because this is not a realistic
Right,
expectation when you are past like 22.
Right.
Yes.
See, so that's where that reality piece comes in. Is that expectation realistic? Like my desires can be whatever
Whatever
I
they
want them
want,
to
right.
be. There's no judgment here.
Right.
I could equally say, I only desire sex once a month
Right.
or once a year. That's
Might not meet her expectations.
Right,
You might have
right.
some problems there.
Exactly. So when we're misaligned, that's not just where disappointment happens. That's where resentment comes in.
So now when your expectations, and you see for you guys watching on my Facebook Live, you're not seeing it on TCN, which is where you should go. There's a great little chart that Selena's put up, and it says disappointment equals expectation over reality. When expectation is greater than reality. And you're absolutely right. That's when resentment comes in. But I think a huge part of that resentment comes from when people do not articulate
Exactly.
their expectations, because I see that a lot, especially in adult relationships, and it blows my mind. With younger people, teenagers and stuff, I get that, for whatever reason, I guess you watch too much Disney, you believe that people are going to read your mind and know what you want. But as you get older, you realize the best way to say is, Andrew, for my birthday, I want you to throw me a ticker tape parade. I
Right.
want streamers. I want balloons.
Yes.
If I want this, I have
Right.
to say it.
Right, and if I want to give you what you want, I'm gonna have a pen and paper and I'm gonna write that down.
Down.
You know why? Because I am not you. I'm not gonna want everything that you want. I'm not gonna remember everything that comes out of your heart and out of your mouth because we're different people.
Right.
So I'm glad you mentioned the whole Disney idea because that's exactly what
Oh,
comes to
wait,
mind.
wait. Selena didn't wave at us. How long have we gone over?
Are we over time?
We're
See,
over time.
we're having fun in this
she
conversation.
wasn't paying attention either because she didn't stop us. So when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the Disney idea, right?
We're gonna come, yeah.
Yeah,
come
we're
back
coming back to the
fairy
Disney idea,
tales.
the fairy tales of love and life, when we come back from this break.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. The large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see that anymore is because
The ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
All right, we are back after running over time. Our conversation was so tasty. Okay, so we were talking a little bit about what our expectations, and I like to tease things apart, and when we use language interchangeably, sometimes it can be confusing.
Yes.
So we're teasing apart expectations from desires in this moment, and I believe that desires, when they're not met, they lead to disappointment. And sometimes when I'm dealing with my 6-year-old, I want to let her know that you're not going to get everything you want in life. Disappointment, it's important to be able to handle that.
Yes.
Now, resentment, that's something altogether different. When you have a lot of resentment stored up in a relationship, it's going to come to an end, or it's going to come to blows, one of the two.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So the way I see it, expectations, when they're not met, that leads to resentment. And I see that a lot with couples. Whereas if we focus on a desire and it's not met, it's disappointment. Like you get it. I can handle that, right? Does
Yes.
that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense, because a desire, it's more of an idea of what ideally would be and
Yeah.
what I want. It's just like, I desire to leave here and my car be replaced with a brand new CX-5.
Right.
Right?
Right.
My expectation is that the same car will be there.
Right.
So it's completely different. One is a fantasy. One is
Right.
truly fantasy.
Right.
And the person that has the desire should be aware of that.
Exactly. So one of the questions to ask when it comes to expectations, we're going to come back to the Disney thing, is, are my expectations realistic? These are questions for us to ask ourselves.
Yes.
Are my expectations realistic? Now, your desires, they don't have to be realistic.
No.
But that doesn't mean you don't get what you want. I tell couples and I tell families all the time, when we're in the goal setting phase at the beginning of our work, I say, what is it that you want? Because you can get what you want most of the time. But most people don't really think about what they want, right? So when we start to talk about what we want, then we kind of put it in words, and then we can ask ourselves, is this realistic? Is this possible? Based on what I want, based on who I'm dealing with, is this realistic? And then you can say, well, that might not be realistic, but this is. So then this is my expectation in this situation. Then the next question that you get to ask is that person in agreement with these expectations? Right? Because if they're not in agreement, if they don't agree with you and they're not willing to carry their part of the bargain,
Doesn't that fall back to almost a desire? Because it's not
well, see,
it's not an expectation if they don't agree with it. Or
See-
it is because you expect it.
right, you anticipate it, you expect it in your mind, even before you communicate it, it can be an expectation. But is that expectation, one, clear to you, and two, clear to the other person, and then three, are we on the same page? So here's the Disney thing. Fairy tales. Whether we like to believe it or not, unless you come from like a seriously hard background, we all want to believe that fairy tales do come true.
And they're in every culture, no matter
Right?
what country you come from, there is some type of fairy tale storytelling.
we do.
Absolutely.
So we buy into these fairy tales about ourselves and about other people and about love and life. So if you were watching, you could fill in the blanks. If you love me, you will.
Get that for me, do that for me, be here when I need you to be,
Yeah.
behave in this particular way that would make me happy, fill in the blank.
Exactly. If you love me, you will be able to read my mind.
Absolutely. And you'll know that I want a ticker tape parade for my birthday.
Right? You will know what I want without me telling you. Same thing, right? I'm changing the words because a lot of people, they don't realize that they have this belief.
Yes.
If you love me and our love is real, you will feel this way about me
Yes. Or
all of the time.
all of the time. Or if you love me, you wouldn't be mad with me.
Right.
Right? So, and there's if you love me, you will react in or behave in this way because that's how I feel that you should love. And then then we could branch off into love languages and
Exactly.
all of those things.
Because our beliefs, they permeate everything.
Exactly. And if I'm not a words person. So if I'm not telling you that, you may not believe it, but it's because I keep giving you things. Because that's my love language.
Right.
I'll just keep bringing you things. I'm like a pet. I just keep bringing you
Right.
things. Because that's my way of saying I care. Whereas all you want to hear from me is, I love you. I think you're wonderful.
Right. So we might be on different pages with our love language, but what we don't realize is sometimes we have that expectation that that other person, one, is going to receive what I give and is going to understand that that's the way that I love, and then they're going to reciprocate. That's my expectation.
In the way that I want.
Exactly. That's my expectation. I don't realize that that's an unvoiced expectation, but that's what it is. So it's a setup for the other person, and it's a setup for yourself.
And I think there's a big chunk of that expectation of others is us knowing what our expectations are.
Right.
Because, like you said, they're unspoken, and not just to the other person, but often to ourselves. So we are not, we're not articulating to ourselves what it is we expect of this person. We know that we keep feeling disappointment or resentment, but we've never articulated to ourselves that I expect this person that, to do this thing. So, for example, you have somebody who is not ambitious, but for whatever reason, you've kind of blurred the line between desires because you desire him to be an ambitious man and you expect him to do better. But I think sometimes even reconciling that to yourself shows you the hole in your logic.
Right. Because then, okay, for example, you can desire people to have a level of ambition that looks like, okay, I'm going to get a better job. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to earn more degrees. I'm going to do this.
I'm going to use this talent that you see to
Right.
to monetize it.
Monetize,
Right.
exactly. That's a desire. But when you start to expect that, it puts pressure on the other person because they might not want the same thing.
Does
They
this
might
sound
have the
familiar
same
to anybody?
expectations.
Does this
I
starting
don't
to
see how
sound
it could not.
right?
Everybody has expectations. So then here's where it gets even more complicated because the other person might have expectations, or not might, does have expectations. One of those might be, I expect you to accept me
Exactly what I was
for who
about
I
to
am
say.
and the way that I am.
Exactly.
Right? You married me like this.
Right? And I like to sing to you. I don't want to sing on stage.
Right. I don't want to sing on stage. This voice, this gift, it's for me. I want to enjoy it. Right? That might be their desire. that might be their expectations for themselves, and they have expectations of you. So people don't often, talk to themselves about what their expectations are, define if they're realistic, and then they don't share them with the other person. And one of the most complicated things is, we call it a double bind. You find yourself in a situation where you can't try, you can't win, you're just locked in. For example, if you believe that if this is real love, then I don't have to tell you what it is that I really want. Because if I do tell you, then you're just going to do it because I told you to do it, which really,
and not because
it's
you're
not
not
genuine.
Psychically linked with me in a soul-searching way. And I don't know if you saw, I don't know if it was on that camera or this one, but I was kind of side-eyeing Andrew because he sounded like a delusional 13-year-old girl that was like deep into one of those novels. And even though I know that he's just, saying it, I want to strangle him, because that's the thing that I hear from adults sometimes, that it's like, no wonder everyone's so unhappy. How could she possibly know that's what you wanted if you did not tell her? And no, they don't love you less because they didn't figure it out on their own, and they may be paying attention, but we look at life through our own eyes, right? I see things through my own eyes. So if you don't tell me, we stand on the same in the same room looking at the same thing, and you say it's a red box, I'm like, no, it's black, because my side's black and his side's red.
We see things differently, and we feel things
differently.
But that whole fairy tale idea is that we feel things the same way at the same time and to the same degree, and same. Like, and this is going to be same for the rest of our lives.
And just like any good rom-com where, you show up at the same place, the same outfit, with the same flowers at the same time, just knowing all of these things, the right train, you just know. And I think that feeding into that idea makes so many people unhappy because we are not psychically linked, and you could love someone deeply and desperately and still have misunderstandings because you don't communicate. Communication is the foundation of any good relationship, business, romantic, parental, you name it, any relationship. Right. Strong, clear communication is the key. So in setting your expectations, now setting expectations, saying we're going to go to break in a second, but saying that I expect this of you, how do you clearly clearly express your expectations to someone, and what do you do if they don't meet them? So we'll be right back after this break.
Hello everyone, my name is Jermaine Chambers, and I'm very excited to tell you about the newest political and current affairs program coming here to Brampton. It's called On Point.
The first step of true reconciliation is learning more about one another.
Join us on Tuesdays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. as we discuss all the issues.
I will never forget the trust you put in me.
Municipal, provincial, federal, and any issue of national importance, we will talk about On Point. So do join us.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and I'm here today with Coach Drew from Coach Drew Can, and today we're talking about boundaries and expectations, what they are, how to set them, how to communicate them effectively so that we could all meet each other's expectations.
Right? In a wonderful, perfect world,
yes,
we would always meet each other's expectations. But I guess this is our contribution to helping people get there. So how do we clarify what our expectations are to the other person? How do we communicate them? Well, again, you got to know what they are for yourself first.
Know what you want.
Know what you want.
Know what you want.
And it's okay to start with knowing what you don't want.
Yes.
Okay? For example, because a lot of people phrase what they want initially in terms of what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to yell at me, or I don't want you to come home late every week or every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So you reverse engineer that.
Yeah.
Say what you do. I want you to come home at this time
Right.
every single day
Right.
for the rest of your life.
Right.
And you come home to me, right? You don't call nobody on your way home. You don't do nothing like that. You come home, you check in with me first, right? And the more you kind of start to articulate, you realize, oh, that's a little
That's
extreme.
a little bit. Yeah, because at first I was down, and then as he kept talking, I was like,
Right?
wait, hold on.
Right? Because we're getting into, when we start to unpack what it is that we really want,
Uh-huh.
it's a lot of stuff,
We want a lot of stuff.
right? So then when you can kind of be grounded in yourself, you'd be like, okay, no, what is realistic? Okay, I do want you to come home at a certain time, which is a reasonable time after work, because if work ends at 5 o'clock and you live half hour away, I would hope that you would be home by 5:35.
Right.
With unrealistic, right?
6.
Right? Then you start to losing up. Well, around 5:45, because I'm a traditional person. I'm gonna have dinner waiting, right? And then you start to ask yourself questions. Well, what if they're late? Are they allowed to be late? Yeah, things happen.
And
Life happens.
Right.
Right. So let's say they get caught up in a conversation with somebody after work, or they're running over. What is your expectation? Well, if you're gonna be late, I would like you to give me a call. That's an
Okay.
expectation that's going to be explicit. Can we
Right.
agree on that? Will you give me a call if you're going to be late?
Okay, yes, this seems very reasonable, so
Reasonable.
far. Okay, I'm with you
It's
here. Because the
reasonable.
first part wasn't reasonable.
It
I was
wasn't.
horrified.
It wasn't.
Come home at a certain time. Exactly. That's your expectation. And that is the reality of every situation in life, especially parenting.
Right. Life doesn't just happen.
It does not just happen.
linearly like
so
that.
I really like that example because, and it's funny because, people would say, okay, traditionally, Andrew's the male, I'm the female, and I'm telling you, when he first started, and he was like, I'd like you to come home at a certain time. I was like, okay, I could do that. And you're like, every day. I was like, oh, okay. For the rest of your life, I was like, whoa, whoa. And like you said, if you now, as people, if we would be honest with ourselves, introspection, like if I were to get a tattoo, I think that would be it. We have to think about why we think the way we think. That would solve so many problems, and it would keep a lot of people quiet too. If we would just think about why we think what we think. And when you want something from someone, well, I want you should own your own business by next year. Now, like what he just did, start breaking that down, what that would involve every month
Exactly.
and every
Exactly.
week and every day. And so now, honey, you want me to have 36-hour days every day?
Right.
So then we have to be clear in ourselves what we expect. And before we approach other people with, I want you to do this, 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 and that, we should plan it out ourselves and really look at if it's doable. Is this something that can actually be done?
Right. Is it doable? Is it realistic? And when you gave that example, you should be whatever. That's one of the indications there is an expectation. When we use the word should.
Yeah, you should do it. You should
Okay?
absolutely
You should.
be
You have
done
to,
that by
right?
then. You
that,
should.
That indicates that we have some beliefs about what this person should do. So that's an expectation. But you highlighted the fact that we don't really communicate well. Now, there's a difference between talking and communicating.
Yes.
A
You
lot
can
of
talk
people,
at people.
a lot of people talk well. Okay, they talk loud, they talk long, they talk fast, but they're not communicating.
He said they talk well.
Right? They talk enough, but they're not communicating. Right? So this goes back to that webinar that we did a while back, the live webinar that's on my website, www.coachdrew.ca. But a lot of people aren't really aware of their internal dialogue.
Nope, they're not.
Right? We think that our feelings and our thoughts are the same. So because we have a certain feeling, we have a sense about something,
You guys have to watch this.
then we communicate out of that, but we don't realize that we have certain beliefs. So back to this, you should be ambitious. You should be more ambitious. Where does that come from? Right? It speaks about knowing yourself. Where is that?
Right.
That could be a very healthy thing because you believe in this person's capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, listen, you've got so many gifts and so many talents. I think you're holding yourself back,
Yeah.
right? I think it would be good for you to make a plan and start a business. That's a very different way of communicating. Sometimes you should do this comes from your own stuff.
100%.
Your own stuff. So I'll give my example.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling this intense today. So I come from a background of what I thought was relatively poor.
Right.
So that the experience of poverty is insidious. It permeates everything. So there might not be enough. There might not be enough money. There might
Yes.
not be enough food. I might not be enough. So it taps into my own level of security and esteem and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if I carry that with me and I don't address that,
And then turn it back on.
right? The phone bill's going to be too high. The water bill's going to be too high.
Yeah.
Are they looking at what they can afford? No, it's just there's a fear that it's not going to be enough.
No.
So we have these expectations, and it puts pressure on the other person. So if that other person isn't aware of where I'm coming from and why that's a trigger for me, they're going to think like, what is wrong with you?
And the other person can't know where you're coming from and know it's a trigger for you unless you know where you're coming from and you know it's a trigger for you. And this is why know thyself. Think about why you think the way you think. And that's, it's like the shrill, I'm thinking of the shrill wife, standing with the pot roast in the doorway at 6:05, freaking out, losing her mind, her whole mind.
Right.
It's 6:05 and you're not home and And again, if the expectations were clearly laid out,
Right.
I do want you to come home every day at the same time, every single day for the rest of your life, no matter what. Then that person, and if they agree to that, that's one thing. Okay, if you're going to be late, give me a call.
Right.
And you would have the phone call. But if she now had thought about, why do I need you home at exactly the same time every night without fail and no exception? Is it my own insecurities?
Right.
Is it, do we have trust issues? Do I, and when you start to unpack that now, when you start thinking about that, you can fix things within
Yes.
yourself that will then help you deal with other people more freely. Because when we are insecure, we hold on really tight, and it's like taking any hard object. If you hold it really, really tight, there's a good chance it'll pop out of your hand.
Yeah.
But if you cradle it gently, if you hold it, it will stay. So knowing why we have these expectations of people, like parents to children, well, you should be in university because I see you're smart and I see this and I see that, but we're not factoring that person's own desires.
And their own experience.
And their own experience of
And
not being enough might be one of them.
Exactly, right? And I know I like to have fun and talking about these things and how ludicrous some of these ideas and beliefs sound. But most of the people that I get to work with, they're really, there's an explanation, there's a story that makes sense. So for the person, male or female, that expects their partner to be home 6:05 on the dot, where does that come from?
Exactly.
It might be like, when I was
Exactly.
young, I was told that the family that stays together, they eat together.
Right.
I didn't grow up with this. So this is what I want from my family. Because if this doesn't happen, then this family is going to turn into what my family turned into. So I hold
Exactly.
on tight based on a fear of what could happen. That's based on my own belief system and all that stuff. And if I don't clarify that and I don't speak to that, then the other person is going to think that I'm crazy and eventually resent me, and what you don't want to happen will happen.
Exactly. And then also, too, I think you end up feeling a bit crazy yourself. Now, we're going to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about how expectations, because Andrew connects dots in different ways, right? And he teaches me new things. So apparently now, expectations lead to boundaries.
Yes.
By having expectations of others and ourselves, we create boundaries. See how quickly I learn? I'm good at this. So when we come back from this break, we will talk about how expectations lead to boundaries.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered.
Join us on Tuesdays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. as we discuss all the issues:
I will never forget the trust you put in me.
municipal, provincial, federal, and any issue of national importance. We will talk about on Point. So do join us.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Which camera am I looking at? I always get confused. Number 2. Camera number. Welcome back. So we've been talking about expectations, desires, the Disney World fairy tale effect, and what it means to have healthy and what it means to communicate realistic expectations. You understand them for yourself first, and then you communicate them to others.
Yes.
And now we're going to dive into this whole idea of how expectations lead to boundaries. Mm-hmm. So first, what are boundaries?
Me?
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for
Boundaries are things or lines that are positioned to separate things, or in this case, people.
Yes, exactly. And those lines, they're not necessarily permanent. They're not necessarily rigid. Mm. They can change over time. So it's like, they can open, they can close based on your decision. You can choose to modify these boundaries when your expectations aren't met.
If you modify your boundaries too often, or if they're too malleable, doesn't that make you seem wishy-washy?
Yes. Yes. So just because we're talking about boundaries doesn't mean that the boundaries are healthy, right? You can have healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries. We see this in parenting a lot. What we call when you have a rule, a family rule, like you're supposed to come in at this time because you are 15.
Right.
Right? When the child is 22, an adult child, and the time hasn't shifted.
Because you're Caribbean. No, I'm joking.
Then, right, that's a boundary that stayed rigid and it didn't grow with time. It didn't grow with the person.
Okay.
So it's no longer functional. Then, it's dysfunctional.
Okay.
So just like you have that rule, we have rules about our lives and our relationships. We have them all the time, whether we're aware of them or not, that's another issue. But we're talking about becoming more aware of them and becoming intentional about them.
Right.
So if you have an expectation, for example, I expect you to be, honest.
Okay.
Sounds fine. Right?
Sounds fine.
Reasonable.
Yes, it's very reasonable.
Do I expect you to be honest all the time and about every single thing?
You may, but I don't think that's realistic.
And it would differ depending on the relationship.
Exactly.
Right? So when I talk with people sometimes, especially when it comes to assertiveness, I look at the it's like the circles of relationships. So it starts with you.
Yes, I saw that one. Maybe Selena will find it. So it's me, and then family,
right,
and then friends, and then acquaintances,
right,
and then the red one was strangers. And I saw stranger
right?
danger, but
so and some people we interchange friends and family because
I was gonna say that line should have been wavy because sometimes
and you get to know what that boundary is, who is close, right, and all that stuff. So you get to choose that, but those circles then, you can make those circles rigid, or you can make them loose,
right.
Right? So some people, they're too rigid, and the people that you want in that circle can handle it. It's like, no, you're controlling. That's a little bit too much.
Controlling.
Your demands are a little bit too much. You want me to call you every single day, 5 times a day. That's just too much. Expectations. So that person who's in relationship with you, they can assert their boundaries and clarify it. Listen, I'm feeling this pressure.
I think she's good like that.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll share mine. I'll bring in my circles a little bit different. I'll bring it in next time.
Okay.
But you get to negotiate these boundaries. You get to say, I'm feeling there's some pressure. Like you have these expectations of me that I think are a little bit too much. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Right? So you can negotiate those boundaries. You don't have to, love them or leave them. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Oh, don't love them or leave them? Okay.
No.
I'll write that down.
I'm not saying you never love them or leave them. But in love, you get to negotiate what's going on.
You should be able to negotiate. Everything should not be make or break, right?
Right, because that ties back into the all or nothing
Yes.
thinking. It's all or nothing. Either you do everything my way or it's not going to work.
Right.
That's usually not going to work, and you're going to end up alone, or you're going to be dissatisfied because the person who you have gives you everything you want, then you're going to be unhappy anyways.
Guaranteed.
Right?
Yeah, guaranteed.
So negotiate. We want to negotiate these boundaries.
Okay.
So boundaries can be things like time. It can be proximity. It can be money. It can be all these things are boundaries that we negotiate, right? If somebody keeps showering you with gifts, right? Sometimes you can be like, that's a little bit too much, right? Or somebody's all up in your space.
Yeah, just too close.
Right? They're like, it's like, that's a little bit too close. But some people don't feel comfortable
setting boundaries.
putting that out, right?
Yeah.
Saying, okay, you're a little bit too close, and people don't know how to articulate that. They don't know how to be assertive in that way.
And some people, I think they look at setting boundaries as a negative thing. It's setting boundaries isn't about being against you. It's something for me.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I'm thinking about parents and children. I'm thinking about romantic relationships. I'm thinking about work relationships where, okay, people have desires. You desire your employee to do everything perfectly all the time. Then there'll be expectations. I expect you to come to work at this time and complete this task and complete this task. Now, once those expectations are set and clearly articulated, and this would involve the process of the person figuring out what it is that they expect, deciding if it's even realistic, because there are all sorts of stuff that I want that are not based in reality. So I've got to scroll it back, put it in realistic terms, and then present them to the person. This is what I expect.
Yes.
I expect you to come home every day before 7, have dinner with us 3 times a week, call if you're going to be late.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Oh, no, wait, hold on. No, that's a lot of pressure. Wait, okay? I can send a text if I'll be late.
Right.
And I'll do dinner 5 times a month. And, right? But that's where the negotiation should come in. And if the person is understanding and balanced and is out of the Disney fantasy, they will understand that, no, it doesn't have to be everything I want.
Right.
Because you're not ticking all of my boxes. And this is where the difference between standards, I think, and boundaries. Like, they talk about lowering your standards or lowering your expectations. And it's not a lowering of standards because there is a minimum quality that you want.
Right.
But I think we have to adapt our expectations to the individuals in our life. Because,
Right.
Even with multiple children, don't do yourself a favor. Don't expect the same thing of them all. You're just going to be disappointed.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's where the negotiation comes in. It's based on the setting, it's based on the person, it's based on all those things. I like thinking about standards in terms of values. You don't want to compromise your values.
Right.
You don't want to say, like, dishonesty is okay. You don't want to say, I like when people lie to me, because that's not true. But you want to be realistic to, depending on the context of the relation, do I expect you to open up everything to me easily all the time? Just,
every
drop of a dime? That's a little bit unrealistic. Now, if I find that you're telling me untruths regularly, we're going to have a problem.
Right.
And we get to talk about that. I was working with a family recently, and we're talking about boundaries and expectations. And let's say the child was not only doing poorly in school, but they were selling stuff at school, they were bringing stuff home or not coming home, doing a whole bunch of stuff. Like, this is pretty serious stuff. So the difficulty was, how do I love this person?
Yeah.
Because I'm angry, I'm hurt. They're taking money out of my wallet, out of my account, how do I draw these limits? Because I'm concerned that if I put this boundary up, they're gonna go out, they're not gonna come home, things are gonna be worse out there, I'm not going to, right? So it's a fear that is preventing them from being clear and firm with that boundary.
Right.
it's important to not be fearful, but firm and clear with those boundaries.
Yeah.
Because those same things that you're worried about out there, they're likely going to happen
In
here.
there, exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
a lack of boundaries invites a lack of respect.
Exactly. And so it was interesting. I'll fast forward in this situation. It was important to be clear what the expectations were. And important to say, okay, you know what? I love you. I want you to live here. However, these are the expectations. I expect you to come home sober. I expect you to come home without any of this stuff. I expect you to do this, and this is your part. If you want to live here, I'm not kicking you out.
Right.
You are kicking yourself out.
Yes.
If you choose not to live within
these
parameters,
boundaries. Yes.
Right? Now, a lot of people think it's all or nothing. What we staged was, okay, these are the places that I would recommend you go. You have an aunt who will tolerate you for 2 weeks. You have a cousin who will tolerate you for 1. You have a grandpa who will deal with you for 3 months.
Right.
So you have some options. You don't have to take any of those options. You could do whatever you want.
But these are your options.
But you're not coming home here unless you choose to live within these parameters.
Yes.
So true to form, the kid, did whatever he wanted to do. Testing that parent. Are you going to be firm with that boundary?
And if you're not, then you get wishy-washy.
Exactly.
And that lack of boundaries, lack of respect, and we're right back to where we started, where people are not lack of respect.
Yeah. And it was difficult because you're not in control of what could happen. You have to be ready to live with the consequences, the guilt, all that stuff if something does happen either way, right? It's not easy. However, again, fast forward, the kid did what he wanted to do. The parents said, okay, boom, it's done. You can go here, you go here. The kid went where they wanted to go. And as we know, it was short-lived.
Yep.
Because people aren't going to want to deal with your stuff forever.
Exactly.
So the kid came at home. What did they do? They said, these are the expectations again. Are you ready to live with them? And they could do that dance because they had the means to do it, they had the energy, they had the time, all that stuff. And there's so much more respect now.
Exactly, because you have to work in those boundaries. And that's why we're going to wrap it up, Selena. Don't kill me. And that is why it's so important to, when you are setting your boundaries, one, when you set your expectations, to communicate them. They can't exist in your head. No one's in there except you. And two, that when you do set boundaries, that they are reasonable and you're confident in them, and you know that, you know what, this is truly my minimum working circumstance, so that if the person, like in this circumstance, does break those boundaries, you are willing to deal with the consequence because you know you weren't being outrageous with your boundaries. Exactly. It really was a minimum basic working circumstance. So, in summary, Andrew, we're going to wrap it up so that Selena can.
All right. So, in summary, expectations are different than desires. Desires are, you can desire what you want. Expectations, you want. They can be healthy if you are clear with yourself and you're clear with the other person.
Yep.
And there's an agreement, right? We're going to meet these, and these are the boundaries, right? And this is how we're going to move forward together. It doesn't sound very romantic, but it's healthy. And it feels good when you get there. Like real life happens and you go a little bit deeper, and that's where you find more of the romance and the love.
So what, you don't just go to the beach and find fireworks and stuff? Like it just doesn't happen like that?
Well, it does just happen at the beginning. That kind
okay.
Of, fireworks
yeah,
stuff,
that
does happen.
But then I have to tell you to go buy fireworks and put them at the beach.
Yeah,
and then bring me there.
Because he went to work. Or
right.
She went to work, right? Your life got full. Like, I don't expect it to feel the same way and look the same way forever.
Someone write that down.
Right? It comes and it goes, and then there's work. You get to cultivate it. And I can talk and talk and talk. We got to stop.
We got to stop. But we will be back at the end of next month. Join myself and Coach Drew, and check him out on YouTube and Instagram, Coach Drew Can. But we will be back next month. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, let us know. Send us a line, and we will definitely put it up in consideration. Have a great one, and thank you for joining us.
Take care.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity in our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.